at that point, I was like, wow, this is why I did this. I didn't even think about it. Why was I so drawn to combat sports? Why was I so drawn to individual sports? Well, I wanted to shine. I wanted my father to see me. I mean, I've always been a gym instructor. I've always had my gym, and stuff like that. That's always my passion. But when you have your kids in private school, your passion doesn't always pay the bills. And so, I have a consulting business, um, and I was looked at by Mark Cuban to come aboard, do some consulting for him. Well, Mark ended up hiring me and to do HTNet Fights, which is combat sports division for HTNet. Well, I knew nothing really of TV outside of what I've done in TV, being on TV, you know what I mean? And I knew the fight business and stuff. It was funny because when I put my product, I go, listen, this will be the number one programming in 6 months. And they were laughing at me. I mean, Mark didn't, but everyone else that was involved was like, okay, whatever. So I get a phone call from Mark Cuban one day, and he was like, "Hey, guy," and Mark has a very unique way of talking, like you're all like you guys been buddies forever, I'm like, yeah, hey, go, hey, this is Mark. I go, hey, Mark, what's going on? I'm like, who is this, right? He goes, hey, man, I'm in Vegas. I want you to fly out here if you can. If you got something open, I got deal. I want to get this thing going. I'm like, I started laughing. Yeah, I'll just jump on my private plane like this. And he starts laughing. He goes, no, you can't take my plane. And I realized, holy, I'm talking to Mark Cuban. He goes, no, I'll fly you out. So they flew me out. I met Mark Cuban. Tremendous connection there. And what was supposed to be an hour meeting turned into be like a 6-hour meeting. And we formed this company. And I told him that he wasn't going to make a mistake. He paid me. And the funny part is I never really had a job since I was 20 years old. I was a contractor, basically. I mean, as a fighter, I was a contractor. As a trainer, I was a contractor, and I own my own business. And so I now am employed by one of the wealthiest men in the world to form this, HTNet Fights, form mixed martial arts programming and kickboxing program for HTNet Fights. Well, in 6 months, we were the number one programming. And my father came to Texas, and I haven't seen him because we had another falling out, because I found out that there was some shenanigans going on with my sisters and his wife, and I wasn't going to put up with that. So I basically, laid down the law on him, which put a big dent in the relationship. So I probably hadn't seen my father in 6 years. I have a son now. I think Rachel was on her way. I figured, maybe my father would want to see his grandson, because I just don't have normal children. I have the most amazingly beautiful children. And I'm not just saying that because I'm their dad. It's just the freaking truth. They're unbelievable. And, your life is better knowing my children. I guarantee it. They're just very sweet, loving people, which is amazing. It just shows you how much influence mom actually has on them too. And so I introduced my dad, my son to my father, and so he goes, "What you doing now? Are you still being a caveman and fighting?" So then I said, "Well, Dad, I'm a little more sophisticated than a caveman. But yeah, I retired, Dad. I retired 3 years ago." He goes, "Oh, well, that's good. What you doing with yourself now?" I said, "Actually, Dad, I'm the president of HTNet Fights." He goes, "Well, what's that?" So I explained him the whole deal. How one of the wealthiest men in the world took under his wing, and I had to make decisions. You understand? I had to make decisions in this company. I don't even balance my checkbook. All right, I'm making decisions that are costing millions and millions of dollars, and I'm freaking out. I freaked out so much. I called Mark. Mark, I'm not sure. He goes, "Well, I hired you because I thought you could. If you can't, tell me you can't, and we'll find somebody else." So I made some really gutsy decisions, and I had help. Andrew Simon helped me out a tremendous amount. And he actually became on as the CEO later on. But so we made this thing, and I thought, now at least, right, I'm not, you know, this lowbrow Neanderthal anymore, right, in his eyes, right, that I would get a data boy for being the president of HTNet Fights. Not a word.
Do you ever remember your dad saying, "I'm proud of you, I love you"?
Yeah, my father, you know, my father wasn't Darth Vader or anything. Okay, so it's not like that. I'll be honest, I can't remember "I'm proud of you." You know what I mean? I can't remember that, but my father did tell me he loved me. Which it's frustrating at times, because why would you do? I mean, he would say "I love you," but then he wouldn't pay child support. I mean, what's up with that, right? And then I remember my mom. They interstate the laws came in. They finally changed the laws, like when I was, I guess I was 18 or 19. 18, I think. My brothers were still 17. Anyways, the short story long is they changed the laws. So my mom sued him for back child support, mainly so we could pay for the education. Because my brothers paid thousands of dollars since they were like 14 years old. They got jobs. We all kind of looked older for our age. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, it's kind of one of those things where like people go, "Oh, he's 14 years old." They believe it, but they go, "Okay, he's 19 years old." They believe it. Those type of people. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of women. They go, "Oh, she's for these really attractive women." They say they're 40 years old. Oh, you can believe that, but you can also believe if she said she was like 32, right? So it was kind of like that. And so at 14 years old, they got jobs as banquet bartenders at the Harvey Hotel, and they were banking. I mean, literally, they were making so much crazy money, and I wasn't making very much money at all. In fact, I was probably the least contributor in the family. Of course, that would be typically me, right? and um, so he got sued for it, and he was in transitions from a job. He started his own company and stuff, and there's always that. And he gets hit with like, I don't know, it was like $75,000-$80,000 worth of back child support, and he's like freaking out. And he goes, "If you loved me, you wouldn't do this. You love me, you wouldn't do this." And we were like, I was like, really? I mean, $875 is all my father had to pay, you know what I mean, a month. You know what I mean? I mean, that was it. And there was an increments to go up as we got older, you know what I mean? But he wouldn't have paid more than like $1,200 for 3 kids.
Yeah. So this idea that he would say "I love you," but he wouldn't actually show it, right? And by his actions.
Yeah, my father's expression of "I love you" wouldn't be like my expressions of "I love you." I am, like I said, most people know pretty much where they stand with me. And I'm a very affectionate guy, and I can be very cold too, And so the thing is that like he wouldn't be like that. And I've had to teach myself, because this is the problem. And I call it the legacy, because you are cursed with that. You are cursed with what your dad gives you. I never got, that kind of that love you thing, and a lot of my relationships, I just assumed the woman knew I loved her. I wasn't a big "I love you" guy, you know what I mean? And I just assumed, I mean, I was like my father. I used the "I love yous" to manipulate versus, let them know and be like, come on, do this for me. I love you, because I wanted her to do my laundry or whatever, you know what I mean? But it wasn't that I didn't care for him or anything like that. I just didn't express it like that because my father never did. I believe my father loves me. I do believe that. I believe that his acceptance is conditional. So it's kind of a different kind of love. It's not the love that I think that that is meant for us in a spiritual sense. I'm stuck with this legacy of anger. I walked around pissed off my entire freaking life. You know, um, I was quick to get physical with people. Funny thing is that, okay, like I'm 50% of my father. I mean, almost straight down the middle, 50% of my father, and I'm 50% of my mother. And it makes the weirdest dichotomy because, like, I don't like hurting people's feelings. Right? My mom is like the most sensitive person. I don't like hurting people's feelings. You know, I mean, I look horrible. I am a loving person, you know, when it comes to my family and stuff like that. But I can shut that off like my father in a half a second and put a beating to inch of your life. It's the most crazy thing in the world. I catch myself, I don't know what I look like because I love to see it in the mirror, but I would imagine I look exactly like my dad. My kids would do something, I'll be like, I get it. So my dad would get so mad he couldn't even speak. And I'll be like, and I'm, oh my goodness, man, that's my dad. Now, I've never been physical with my children. In fact, my stepson, I was extremely conscientious of being not the disciplinarian, you know, which I probably should have stepped up and been a little bit more of a disciplinarian, but he's a good boy, good man now. He's 21. But you know, there's that old saying, and it's actually a book about fathers, Saint John, the book Saint John, you know, it's called. And you ever read that? It's good. But probably the best line in it is that mother's disciplined by the weight of guilt, and dad's disciplined by the hint of death. And there is truth to that. You know, you should respect your father. And short of that, there's a difference between respect and fear, right? You know, but there's and so I want my children having a healthy degree of respect for me, that borderline, hey, I better do what it is because I'm going to get in trouble kind of thing. But I never want them scared of me. See, I was always scared of my father, and I made the big mistake of thinking fear was respect. When I was younger, and a little about myself is when I went back, I had these scholarships and all these things, and I managed to blow it. I managed to blow 2 scholarships. I managed to just completely get kicked out of school, and I was having a terrible time in my life. And I was like against that. My life from like 17 to 21 was like a bad Miami Vice rerun. I got shot in a drive-by. I was stabbed in the hand and the face. I got stabbed in the hip. I got slashed in the back. All these are separate saves. This one and this one happened at the same time. I took a cue stick upside the head, looked like the Elephant Man for about 2 weeks. All this rage of self-loathing that I look at it now, I know where I got that from. That's my father. My father has a tremendous amount of self-loathing because he's got it. And it's the most amazing thing too, because you see, my father, who, I don't know how he is with my sisters, but we never got the warm fuzzies from him. Okay, so, but my brothers are the most loving guys and the softest individuals. I mean, when I say soft, I mean not in a bad way, but in a extremely caring way. They're the type of guys that go and pick up the guy that fell down on the street, and he may be, a bum, and they'll pick him up, dust him off, go buy him a cup of coffee. That's my brothers. That's not my dad. The legacy passed down from my father shapes me as a father of my children. it's like this though. Okay. Not having a father in your life at all is a bigger disadvantage than having a complete jerk in the in your life at some degree or another, because providing that life is not being threatened. Okay, I mean, obviously having that person out of your life is important, but having some kind of father influence gives you a great example of what either to do or not to do. My first reaction to something, I think, if I have the clear enough brain, the fight business is one thing that's a very interesting thing, because I was a wild animal. Okay, I mean, I was a wild animal, and I was a dangerous wild animal. I had teeth and claws, and when I first started fighting, I fought on rage, and I crushed people. Now, if they made it past the third round, which most of my opponents didn't, they'd make it out of there because my rage would be spent, and I have 2 more rounds of me running around waiting for the bell to ring so I can get out of this thing because I'm about to exhaust And the fight business taught me how to control it. Fight business told me it's not about rage. It's not about anger. It doesn't matter what they do. You don't get angry. You do it. And this is where I took the lessons of my father to take things, to look at things not emotionally and listen. And this was the thing. And it taught me how to sit back and be calculated about how you do stuff. And so, I mean, I still have my emotional things or fun things, but I have learned so when I'm dealing with my kids, I'll start in on something and then I'll be able to go, whoa. And I'll be able to go, boom, what am I doing? And my father is like, what I want to teach my children is I want to teach them to be strong. I got strong in spite of what my father did to me. Not because of it. People go, well, you owe this to your dad for this. I could have been strong. I know kids that are strong who have loving parents, that are strong of character, strong of body, strong of mind. If I had the positive side of this, most of my life has been to show people my defactors. Oh yeah, I wouldn't go. I went back to my senior year, my teacher in my senior year of school. She told me I was going to be nothing. I was going to either be dead or in jail by 21. And I saw her, and I apologized actually because I was not that much fun to have in her class. I understood that. And I said, you know something? I want you to know something. What you told me there? And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. I said it like this. I went, just so you know, I've never spent time in prison, and I'm not a loser. At that point, I was 2-time world champion, so I'm a 2-time world champion, just so you know. And I walked off. And so I was successful in spite of those things. I was like, tell me something I can't do, and I'm going to do it. That's no way to live your life. You know why? Because I'm in a perfect part of my life now, and I have difficulties. My wife is amazing. When I say amazing, it's like, I know a lot of guys say that to, sound cute to their hopefully my wife catches this on, YouTube. But my wife is amazing. I mean, incredibly amazing. She's an unbelievably successful business executive. She makes a tremendous living. She's the most amazing mom, most amazing house. This beautiful house that you were commenting on, she did this. I told her I didn't want to get involved because I didn't want to be in divorce court over it. So, and she did this whole thing all by herself. You know what I mean? She got contractors, boom, boom, boom. She's amazing. When I say amazing, she's amazing. But with all that, I still have to teach myself how to get on in life when things are good, not when people want you to win versus want you to lose. I was always great at being the guy going into, like, I spent a lot of my career going into other people's towns and beating up their local heroes. I'd go in there and my job was to win them over, and I could do it. I was a master at it, and, but I don't want to live my life like that. So, but that's my legacy. My legacy is I'm going to show you in spite of this thing. So I don't want that to be passing down to children. I don't want to pass down the anger to my kids. I don't want to pass down these crazy, unattainable expectations, right? My father never said, he was never realistic in his expectations. I mean, why am I not going to Yale? I don't know, because you're not paying for it. I am a poor kid. I mean, we're poor kids. I mean, we went to Plano, okay, but just give you an idea. I mean, when I say poor, poor is relative, right? But we were definitely lower class income. We were, every month was a skin of the teeth type experience, okay? All right. When I had friends who, wrecked 6 cars in 1 year, you know what I mean? I never had a car in high school. I drove a motorcycle, you know what I mean, to work. And it was miserably cold all the time, right? You only remember the cold, you don't remember the heat. And, so when I deal with my kids now, I literally at times have to sit them down and apologize to them for the way I've talked to them. And I pray that I don't do the damage in that initial thing. It's like, it's like when you talk to your wife or your significant other, there is certain language you never use, ever, because it doesn't matter how many apologies or roses or trips to Mexico you give her, it never goes away. It never does. And that's the same thing. I can remember things my father said to me that he can't remember, but I remember as clear as day, that cut like a knife. I don't want that to be me. I do not want to be that with my children. I want them to be strong. I want them to do stuff. I understand the value of being strong. I understand the value of being honorable. I understand the value of being respectful and being respected. I understand the value of education. I want them to value those things. And it's difficult when they want to do this and they want to do that, and you want them to do this, and you want them to do it this. And so, I have a constant battle every day to be a good dad. Now, I got it easy. I mean, some parents have a lot worse. Some parents have kids that have ADD problems. Some parents have kids that have actual physical disabilities. Some people have kids that, learning disabilities and stuff. I don't have those things. And I have incredible children. I have an incredible wife. I have an incredible life. And every day, I still have to work at being a good dad. I'm a good man. I know I'm a good man, but that doesn't make you a good dad. And that's the problem with the legacy, because you're cursed with all that crap. And you react just like your dad. You don't realize it, but you say the same stuff that your dad says. You know what I mean? You use the same things. I understand the value. Listen, my father taught me how to intimidate people. I know how to make people get very scared. I don't really have to say very much. I can walk into a room and make most men feel uncomfortable if I want to, without even saying anything. I don't want to be like that with my children. I don't even want to be like that anymore, any period. You know what I mean? But these are the things that you get stuck doing. You know what I mean? Your frustration because things don't go right. What do? You go to these things that your father teaches you, intimidation. You know what I mean? You know, fear. Things like that. You go to these things because of your frustration.
When did you realize the impact of growing up with a father that was the way he was? In other words, when did it hit you that you were like, wow, this is why I'm the way I am, because of my father? Can you share that story with me?
Yeah, basically, when I had my my big confrontation with my father over his infidelity, um, that was that was the part where I left and went back home and started uh, really kind of like a continual journey now into things like, okay, where you are in life dictates how you see things. Okay, so you know, um, so at that point, I was like, wow, this is why I did this. I didn't even think about it. Why was I so drawn to combat sports? Why was I so drawn to individual sports? Well, I wanted to shine. I wanted my father to see me. Problem is with football, there's 10 other guys that get to share the glory. When I wrestle and I'm the state champ, I'm the number one dog. When I am the karate champ, I'm the number one dog. When I am the kickboxing champ, I'm the number one dog. So I get to shine. So my father doesn't get to be confused with everybody else. He gets to see me and see me in my glory and how well I did. And I was like, wow. I was like that. And then, of course, the idea of being scared. When when I made a conscious decision, when I realized what a coward I was, because I left my brother to take a beating, which you would think it would get easier when it's doing that, but I can't even think about it without being so ashamed and of myself. And I was like, I think I was like 7 years old. I'm 43. Do the math. You figure that I would get over it, but you don't. And I get the same things. And so I think back, wow, my father, because like in high school and stuff, and so if you looked at I would give you a beating into your life if you threatened my brothers. I walked into his class. This one kid threatened my brother. He was a leader of the Mexican gang. And this is back before gangs had guns. And I walked right into his classroom, asked the teacher if I could talk to Tito. She goes, sure. I walked up and punched him in the face. I took his books and I beat him till he was on next to unconscious with his history book right there in class. Teacher didn't even know what to do because that's how I was. I was never going to have one of my family members ever intimidated, ever in a bad spot like that. Now, granted, that was crazy, but there was my father. There was that crazy. That was just as crazy as my father sticking a gun in a principal's face and threatening to shoot everybody. And I still to this day don't know why he didn't go to jail for that. I swear, I would love to know why that happened, how he avoided that, but that's a different story, right? But the thing is that I look back on things and then like, and you get, the problem is with most people, and I think why we have such an issue is that there's no self-reflection. Not self-reflection is a very superficial thing here. It's okay, I have the pretty wife, the 2.4 children, I live in this neighborhood, or I don't live in this neighborhood, I have this car, I don't drive this car. And so the reflection on the inner side, the spiritual person, because we're not human creatures having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual creatures having a human experience, and and so the confusion there is like I said, we get confused, and so there's no self-inflection and reflection. And I have learned to be a lot more self-reflective. Um, I analyzed everything from issues of why I couldn't keep a good girl around. I said, well, maybe it's because I'm cheating on every single one of them. So at 25, I'd never cheat on a girl again. Not that it may, not that I had great relationships after that necessarily, but at least that wasn't one of the factors in the demise of the relationship. And so there was always this thing, and I think that not every one of us has the ability to be self-reflective, but that's when you got to have you got to wake up enough that maybe you need to talk to somebody, and do stuff. I don't, I have in the past, but I find that I tend to be my own best critic on stuff. I am very real about things, about my limitations and and things. And so, um, you know, I, you know, I don't think people look enough. I think that they don't look enough on why, it's like if they yell at somebody and their only question is, man, I shouldn't have done that. Well, why did you do it? And it becomes, and if you do that, you'll recognize immediately. I recognize my father in my voice and I'll change it. You know what I mean? Or I'll give my kids a hug, you know. Every night I tell my daughter she's beautiful because you know what? She wants to know she is from her daddy. She wants to hear that she is pretty enough, that she is that gorgeous princess. It doesn't matter what she looks like. No matter if she has arms, she has legs, what she needs to know, daddy knows she is a beautiful princess. And my son, he wants to hear that he's good enough, that he's the strong warrior to be, and he wants to hear it. And you need to do it. If you don't do that, if you don't reassure that thing, you could be a complete jackass as a father. But if you can get them to understand that they're good enough and that they're pretty enough, then there's a salvageable situation for you, and and that's what needs to, I think we don't do that enough.
What's one thing you wish your dad would have done different?
One thing that, if I could think of one thing that I would love my father to do differently, it's hard to narrow down to one thing.
What's a few things you'd like to see your dad do different?
Well, I would love to see him be, like a loving husband. I never saw him being a loving husband to my mom. My mom is an amazing woman. I mean, she is an amazing woman. I would love to see that. I would have loved to have those examples of that, because marriage for me, I've never had any great examples of marriage. I'm winging this entirely on my own on this one. And I don't do such a great job all the time. I just got an incredible wife. And I know how lucky I am. I mean, the difference is between that is that there is a bit of fear that I learned from my father, because I don't want to be my dad. I don't want to be stuck in this miserable freaking relationship with this miserable woman that they're just miserable, and they're miserable together and they're like this. I don't want that. I want to have this loving relationship. I want to have this. My mom's a very loving person. I kind of married my mom. My wife is the most loving creature in the world. And I would love to see that. I would love my father not to be so physical with us. And like I said, when I talk about him being physical, he didn't like pull out the coat hanger, heat it up, and start, branding us or anything like that. But he was too physical with us. He was just way too physical with us. I would love it for him not to yell the way he did. I would love for him to be able to do it, talk in a manner that is better, because my example, I yell or talk too loud to my children. Not all the time, but I never want to do that. I want him to be all the good things that I want him to be. I wanted him. I used to think he might be a jackass, but he's an honorable guy. He's really not. I want him to be, hey, a guy who is respected and respects others, and he's not. It's like, I don't know if you want you always want your dad to be Superman, and all this other stuff, and we believe he is, even when there's evidence to the obvious that he's not. But there's a certain point where you go, he's none of those things. And I want him to be authentic. That would be the greatest word, because that's what I want to be. I want to be authentic. I want to be able to express my anger when I'm pissed, because not is not being authentic. But I need to know how to do it in a way that doesn't destroy my relationships. I want to be authentic enough so people get me, you know. I want them, you know, the problem is, you know, you get to have this phony thing, you know, about being like a tough guy and stuff, is that I have been inauthentic most of my life with a lot of stuff. Not like great deceptions, but like the fight business. I'm really, really good at something I don't like to do. I don't like hurting other human beings, believe it or not. My drawback as a professional fighter was I was too merciful on my opponents. I was criticized by people because I would not go for the kill. You know, but I had this facade as being boom. Now, am I a tough guy? Yeah, I am. Am I a strong guy? Yeah. Am I have the ability to click off my emotion and go into kill mode in a second? Yeah. But that's not really me. I mean, that's an aspect of me. I want people to get, hey, listen, you know, hopefully I'm a loving father. You know, I want to be authentic. My father's not authentic. He hides behind everything. Religion's now his big a deal now. It's nauseating to listen to him go, because it is like I'm even correcting his scripture thing, which irritates him beyond belief. And you know, yeah, there's, like I said, I just wish he was authentic.
What's the best thing a father can do for his kids?
Be an example. You learn through example. I learned this as an instructor, as a teaching instructor. I was involved in things that weren't necessarily conducive to, you know, being an example. You know, not fighting and roughhousing and doing all sorts of idiotic stuff. And I would see parents of some of my children doing the same exact stuff, but they didn't want to see their kids' martial arts instructor doing that, even though they were doing it. You know, so I stopped and started re-examining some of the things that I did, and I realized that if you're going to demand certain things out of the kids, like there are certain things I don't ask. I tell people all the time, there's a lot of things that sounds like I'm asking. I'm just being polite and telling you. All right. And my martial arts program is very much like that. And but if you're gonna expect that out of somebody, then you better be pretty damn close to what you're expecting them to be. And that's what you have to be. Because your kid is gonna be you. That's the curse. That's the legacy. Now, he may be, you know, he may not be as like, I am very much my father. I'm not violent. I'm not a violent man. It sounds funny for a guy who fought professionally for a living, but I'm not a violent man. I don't lash out. I haven't hit anybody out of anger since I was 13 years old. You know what I mean? Except for when I was 40, when a guy almost ran over my child. That I will admit, I hit him out of anger. But there was other circumstances behind that. But I think that's one of the most important things. If you want, you know, I want my children to be loving. I want them to be charitable. I want them to give their fellow man a hand up. They see that in their father. We do a lot of charities. We do a lot of stuff. I involve my children in food lines that we go to. We, on a regular basis, go down the food lines down in Fair Park and help out. And before they had to go to school, when they were just kids, you know, like kindergarten and like that, I would take him out of school on a Wednesday, because once a month we would go there and he would participate in that, help people out. He'd go play, because these people are waiting in line for like 5 o'clock in the morning, and it goes to like noon. You know what I mean? And there's children there and all kinds of stuff. And Logan would bring his toys and play with the kids, and he would give most of his toys away, like his cars. And he kind of knew that I would replace it. That's probably why he did it. But still, having a kid giving up those things is a big deal. And because he sees me trying to be like that, and you know, I don't want to see him. I don't. I have a unique relationship with my wife. Is that we've had 2 arguments our entire things. We have a few disagreements, but we never really argue. And we've had 2 arguments in the 8 years we've been together. And, you know, I don't know why, because I can be a very disagreeable person, but we don't. And I want my children to see that. I want my son to go, you know what? When I pick a wife, I want someone like my mom, because you couldn't do better. You know what I mean? And when my daughter decides to pick herself a husband, I want someone like my dad, because he's not a bad guy. He's a good man. And that, you know, the only way you're going to be able to get that, you can talk as much as you want, and it is important. But the way you walk the walk is more than how much you talk. And that's, you got to do it. And, you know, and if you can do that, then, I mean, the most important influence on children is the parents. I know this. I deal with children all the time. I've been dealing with children for 23 years, and we want to, the major problem with most of the stuff is we want to blame other people for it. We want to blame video games. We want to blame outside influences. We want to blame drugs. We want to blame bad teachers, whatever it is. We want to blame somebody else. But the reality is, and there are actually statistics that back me up on this. I know this because I deal with children all the time, and I deal with them in a very base situation. So it is very easy for me to get the character. I can tell a measure of a man when he works out in my gym. I can tell which guy is spoon-fed. I can tell which guy is a go-getter. I can tell which guy is self-made. I can tell a lot about a man the way he is in my gym. And even more so with children, because they tend to leave their emotions right on their sleeve.
If you had a friend that was going to be a father for the first time, what advice would you give about being a father?
I always, I say, get as much sleep as you possibly can, because your patience is going to be tested to no end. And being a father is an adjustment period. And it is a constant adjustment. The problem with, I think, most people is they think that if I set these standards, and they're good standards, A, B, and C, and I stick to my guns on these, then my kids should be good. And if they're not, it's not my fault. Well, the problem with that is that this is an organic situation. And if you don't choose to grow organically with it, then there is no statics. There is no, I tell people there is no absolutes in this world. There's only a few of them. It hurts just as much your eyes open as your eyes closed. That's about the only one I can really come up with. And that there's God. I tell people all the time, you can believe in God. Other than that, everything else is pretty much, you know, it's pretty much questionable. I go, you know, I mean, like I said, there's this way it is. And when you're dealing with, I tell them all the time, you know, with these young, because I actually have one of my instructors has just had a daughter yesterday, 2 days ago, and he is like, I go, listen, man, you got a daughter. I said, and I told him, listen, there's things you got to change about the way you are. And I said, you're no longer solo, brother. You now have a whole posse with you. And, you know, that's the thing, as I said, you got to have those patience, you know, and you have to be willing to grow into the situation. The best thing about being a father is crazy, loaded question now, because it's going to sound stupid, but it's like, okay, this morning I took the kids to school. I take the children to school almost every day. I get to do that. And my son gets out and it's cold, and he goes, I go, you want my jacket? You let me have your jacket? Yeah, I want to wear a jacket. And he puts my jacket, and I have a sweat jacket on. It's like, you know, 10 times too big for him. And the first thing he goes is, I'm wearing my daddy's jacket. He said that to the kids walking in. And he looks over at the lady. I'm wearing my daddy's jacket, and I'm like, I'm half embarrassed, but I'm like, he's so proud that I'm his daddy, you know. And he gives me this hug. My daughter, you know, you know, drop her off at her class, and it's a Montessori school, so it's a little more open. So I go in, I talk to the other children, you know, there, you know, for a little bit about Halloween, about all this stuff, and then as she leaves, as I leave, I'm about, you know, I don't know, about 10 feet from the door. She opens the door and goes, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, what?" She runs over, gives me a big hug, big kiss, because I love you. I was like, you know, and you know, she goes back into class, and those things are what makes it worthwhile, because my kids are like that. The love that I get from these kids is amazing, and you don't earn it. That's the funny part. You feel like you're stealing almost, because for the most part, I feel like I don't earn it. I'm grumpy with them. I am having to apologize because I'm grumpy with them. I am, you know, my expectations. I am a stern man. I mean, people don't get it. I am, you know, I have a certain sternness that is used to direct. It's not used as a punishment. It's used as a direction. Uh, you know, there's certain behaviors I won't allow and things like that, and certain expectations I have that I keep reinforcing. But I'm like, man, how did I deserve this? But I'll be honest, I look at it as most of my life, I'm completely blessed. Even when I didn't think I was completely blessed. My wife is a blessing, you know. Uh, I tell people all the time, I said, my wife does such a good job, people actually think I'm a good dad. The fact of the matter is, I'm really not that good. She's just so good that I look good. And there's a bit of truth to that. And so when you say what's the best thing, man, it's just like that love they give you. And to be honest, you don't deserve it. It's like, you know, you just like, man, I have never done anything that wonderful to deserve something this wonderful. Like I said, people that know me know that I'm not a horribly emotional man when it comes to like things. I mean, I show my happiness very quickly, but I'm not the crying sort. You know what I mean? I have never really been that way, which you probably can't tell because I was boohooing here about my experience with my brother. But my children, I get teary eyed. I was teary eyed walking out of the school today because I was like, man, I've got it so good. You know, I mean, I've got it so good. And I've always wanted to be a father. The funny part is the two things I've always wanted to be is married, want to have a partner like that, and I want to have children. And now I've never had great examples of how to raise children. I've never had great examples of marriage. My mom is the most wonderful woman, but she's like a lot of women. If they could pick 10 good ones, she picks the 11th, you know? And you know, so I never saw a good examples of marriage. I was not, you know, always the best boyfriend and stuff, you know, and things, and so it was like, but these are things that I wanted, and it's probably the thing that I would probably should, you know, my advice is to people being fathers is that fathers to be, I should be say, you got to want it. I mean, you got to want it. And when I say want it, like a drowning man wants air. Because when you take that kind of thing, you will do whatever it takes to make sure that things are taken care of. Whether that is anger management classes because you can't handle your anger, whether it is, you know, working that extra job, or in my case, I quit HTNet Fights because it was taking 10, 12 days out of my month to go and be away. And my wife has to travel with her job too. And so, you know, about half my income was being president of HTNet Fights, whereas my wife's whole income is coming to that. And we're about 50-50 on bills. So I was like, it just made sense for me it was a very difficult decision because I loved working there. I loved the whole idea of it, but I love my family a lot more. I love my children a lot more. We have a lot of help. We have a wonderful nanny in our lives, helps us to be able to do some stuff, but I don't want my nanny raising my kids. My nanny is an aid so we can do stuff, not the surrogate mother. And we had to come with that. So I tell people, if you want this enough, and if you are willing to do this the way you want to do it, that these changes won't be that big a deal, that these things won't be a factor in doing your stuff, because there is a constant change in what goes on. I mean, Jake, our older boy, you know, I went from being very cool because I was a professional fighter. I'm on a video game. You can play Guy Mesger, character on a video game, to drop me 2 blocks off from school so people don't see me dropping you off. I'm like, your friends think I'm cool. No, they don't. No, they do. You just don't think I'm cool. You know, it was just heartbreak, you know, that no longer am I cool, you know, like thing, you know, to this boy that saw me as larger than life when you know, especially because I knew him a long time before me and my wife were dating. You know, you got to see maybe in the height of my Superman years, you know, and it's you know, you got to make these adjustments, and you got to be willing to do it, and you got to be willing to keep a smile on your face while you're doing it. Being a father myself now, like officially being like my own children's father for almost 7 years, 6.5 years, it's been the best thing that I have, the best accomplishment that I ever did. You know, like I said, I was a 5-time world champion, you know, something, you know, greatest accomplishment was getting my wife to marry me, and very close, either tied with that or very close behind it, is having those children. And you've got to always have that sense of appreciation, even when they're driving you nuts, especially when they're driving you nuts.
Watch the Father Effect movie for free on YouTube.